Do you have a bunch of developers in your environment who constantly take your time, asking you to rebuild VMs, asking you to create new VMs, asking you to install this and that software? If you do, then today I've got the solution for you. In today's video, we're going to explore Microsoft Azure DevBox. DevBox is a service provided by Microsoft, which gives the developers a self-service capability, enables them to manage their own VMs. They can create their own VMs, they can delete their own VMs, so they take the load off you as the administrator essentially. So in today's video, we're going to show you how to configure DevBox, and we'll go through all the steps that you need to go through to get it up and running. Okay, so if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Neil McLoughlin. I am the Virtual Monk. On this channel, we explore the latest technologies around Azure Virtual Desktop, Windows 365, Azure, Windows, and everything else in between. So before we get into the actual doing, let's talk about what is DevBox. So DevBox is a service provided by Microsoft, which enables you to enable developers to basically manage their own virtual machines, okay, or their own DevBoxes. So we can create what we call a dev center, and within that dev center we can create projects, and then you can assign permissions based on those projects, right? And you can configure how many VMs you want your individual developers to create themselves. You can select the different VM SKUs that can create, and you can also define like what software they want on there as well, right? So we can use the inbuilt Windows images from Azure, which will come with Visual Studio pre-installed. But if you have your own individual software requirements, you can define those as part of the kind of DevBox projects as well. So that enables the users to basically log into the project dev center, which we'll go through shortly, and then have a self-service portal when they can go and create and manage their own virtual machines. Right now, there is a cost associated to that, so we'll compare how much this service actually costs compared to just deploying a normal VM. But obviously, the advantages that you're going to get are the self-service capability, right? So historically, developers have been quite demanding people within an IT environment because they're constantly building, rebuilding, testing, compiling software, and they want certain software installed. They want local admin rights. They want this. They want that. So DevBox is a really great solution, which kind of solves that problem, right? Because now I've got the onus on the actual developers themselves. They're the ones who need to go and create and manage their own VMs, and they much prefer that, right? Rather than having to constantly raise tickets and stuff, maybe go through a ServiceNow request or something, we can give them complete control of the environment, right? So basically, what we're going to do in today's video, we're going to go through. We're going to create the dev centers, that kind of the master control. Once we're in the dev centers, we're basically going to go and create the projects, okay? And then we can configure the environment settings as well. So in the environment settings, we'll define what image they want to use, what tags you want to put on the VMs, what software you want deployed on there as well, and then more importantly, permissions. Okay, so we can assign different kind of roles within Azure DevBox as well. So we'll go through that quickly as well. So yeah, enough talking. Let's actually go and deploy DevBox. So we're going to go through all the stuff that I just talked about, and then we're actually going to go and test it and then log on and see all this stuff actually works and see what the sort of end user experience will be for a developer. So what does the DevBox service actually consist of? Right. So for this, I'm just going to head over to the Microsoft documentation, and then we'll walk through and show you what steps are needed in each process. So this is the Microsoft documentation, the quick start guide, and these are the steps that we're going to go through today. So we're basically going to create an Azure Dev Center, right? So like a DevBox Dev Center. This will be the minimum requirement that you need. Then once we've done that, we then basically create a DevBox definition. Okay. So the DevBox definition will be what kind of VM spec we want to use, what image you want to use, that kind of thing. And then once we've got that, we then create the DevBox pool, right? So this will be the pool of VMs that we want to use. And then once we've done that, we then provide access to the project. Okay, so this will be a inbuilt Azure role that we assign to whoever needs it. Okay, and then once that's done, the user will then be able to enter a self-service portal And from that self-service portal, they are able to start provisioning their own desktops as well, right? So very, very cool solution. So yeah, let's get into it and start creating these resources and see what this DevBox actually looks like. Okay, so we're in the Azure portal, and now what we're going to do, we're going to go and configure DevBox. Okay, so let's head over to Azure portal and let's see how we do this. Right, so the first thing that we need to do, we need to create a dev center. Okay, so I'm just in Azure portal. All I've done is search for DevBox, and this is taking me to this screen here. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to create a dev center. So the dev center is like the minimum requirement. Then once you created the dev center, you would go into create a project. Okay, and then once we created a project, we can then go and create our dev boxes. So let's first go and create this. So create dev center. So I'm going to create a new resource group actually. So dev box testing, call that. Okay, we're going to give it details. So name. So we're going to call it Neil's Dev Center. Cannot contain special characters. Okay, so Neil goes dev. Okay. We're going to do it in UK South. We're going to do it with Azure Deployment Environment definitions. And then, yeah, so we're going to allow people to, developers to customize their own dev boxes with PowerShell commands. Okay. Okay, so we're going to click next. Project level catalogs. The resource and catalog to attach to Dev Center, we're able to view all projects revision. Okay, we're good with that. So this is quite interesting. Microsoft hosted network. So the dev box is locked down by default. Okay. So what will enable us to do, we can create what we call a Microsoft hosted network, and that will mean that it will be completely separate from your environment. Okay. So you can also connect it to your existing network as well. But if you want complete security and isolation, which some people do, then we can just basically say, hey, yeah, allow Microsoft hosted network within projects. So that's what we're going to allow. And then we're going to enable the Azure Monitor installation as well, which will enable all the information within our log analytics workspaces. Tags. So I'm not going to select any here. Click next. Validation passed. So we're going to go and click the create button. Okay. So that's going to go away. That'll create the dev center. And then let's just say once we've created the dev center, we can create a project. And then once we create a project, we can then go and create our dev boxes, and then we'll log on and we'll give that a test. So you can see here, this also creates a JSON file. So if you want to reproduce this in any time or build it into your deployment workflow, we can do that as well. Okay, so that deployment is now completed. So we can go to the resource and hopefully we shall see our dev center. Okay, yep, so here is our dev center. As you can see, we don't have any projects configured. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll go and create a project. And then once we've done that, we can then go create a dev box. So now I'm going to go and create a project. So click create project. So we're going to use the resource group that we created earlier. So type in dev box, test. The dev center, we're going to select the existing dev center that we had. Name Neil's project. Neil's dev box project. Okay, so I'm going to click next at DevBox management. So limits allow you to restrict how many dev boxes each developer can create. Yeah, so let's limit them to one. One. Okay, select catalogs. So we're going to let them enable that. We're going to next create, and then we're going to create that project. Okay, so that project's created. So I go to resource, and that takes me to this project. So we need to create a environment type. So let's click create environment type. Okay, so name of my environment. So let's do this Neil's test environment. Okay. Tags we don't need. Yeah, let's create a tag. So Let's do it as this. Yeah, cost center. Neil's Azure bill. Okay. So click that to create the environment type. Now we need to create a DevBox definition. Okay. So I'm going to go to create DevBox definition. We're going to create a name. So Neil's DevBox basis. So Neil DevBox definition. So here we can select what image that we want to use. So we're going to use Visual Studio with the latest 24H2 build. Okay. DevBox, yep. So image version, use the latest compute. So these are different compute types that we can create. So we're going to create a 8 CPU and 32 gigs of RAM. That's the minimum spec that you can pick with these. Okay. Then we're going to do storage. We're going to pick a 256 gig SSD as well. Okay. Okay, so we're going to enable an hibernation as well. Okay, so this will enable the machine to resume where it left off when you disconnect from the machine. Okay, and then you can just reconnect again to the same session. Okay, so we're going to click Create button. And that's going to go away and create that definition. Okay, so we'll give that a few minutes and then I'll be back shortly where we can then try and create a DevBox VM. Okay, so our definition has now been created. Now we need to create the DevBox pool. So I'm over here in the portal. So I'm going to go and click Create DevBox pool. Name, Neil's pool, we'll call that. DevBox definition. So this is the definition that we created earlier. Okay. The region hosting, the pool is managed by network connection. So we're just going to use the Microsoft managed network. If we wanted to use a custom network connection, as in one that already existed in an environment, then we could do that. But for here, we're just going to go and deploy the Microsoft hosting network as well. Enable single sign-on, so we can enable single sign-on if we want to. So yeah, why would you not want to do that? So we're going to click yes for that. So this is the permissions that we can assign to the person who owns a DevBox. So we're going to pick local admin. Okay, so whoever creates a DevBox, he will be a local administrator on that box, which is what we want. If you don't want that, you can just click standard user. Enable auto start on schedule. So if you cost effective, obviously you probably want to do this. So let's configure that to automatically shut down at, I don't know, maybe 6 p.m. Just to make sure we're giving the user that work-life balance. So there we go. And then we could also enable hibernation on disconnect as well. So let's set that to 50 minutes. And what that's going to do, well, it needs to be 60 minutes, okay. And what that's going to do, when the user disconnects from the VM, after 60 minutes, it will go into a hibernation mode, which means when the user comes back in the morning, they can just resume where they kind of left off, okay? And then I'm going to confirm about the hybrid benefits as well. Okay, so what am I missing? Because it won't, there we go, click create. Okay, so click the create button. Okay, and then that's going to go away and create my pool. And then obviously what we do then, we need to assign the user to the pool. And then once we assign the user to the pool, hopefully we should then be able to user to go and create their own DevBox. And then we can log on and give this a test. Okay, so the dev pool has now been created. So we're going to head over to developer portal. Just click refresh. Okay, so now we have the option to basically create a DevBox. Okay. So now I'm going to select add a DevBox. So this is like the self-service capability that we've got here. So enter the name of the DevBox. So DevBox. Okay. So we can see here, earlier we configured only to allow one. So now that's basically saying, yep, okay, only one can be used. We're going to use a 8 vCPU 32 gig RAM machine, hibernation supported. Can apply customizations if you want to, but we're not going to here. And it's basically saying, hey, the DevBox is going to shut down at 6 p.m. Every day as well. So I said it's going to take like 25 minutes to create it, okay, but it can take up to 65 minutes. So I'll let you guys know how long that takes. And then once it's been created, we can then log on and give that a test and see what we get with DevBox. Okay, so I'll be back shortly, hopefully in around 25 minutes. But don't worry, you'll only have to wait a few minutes. All right, see you soon. So you can see here, that's now in a creating state. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'll be back shortly. So if you want to know what this looks like from an admin perspective, over here in the portal, we can see Neil's DevBox here, and it's in a state of creating. Okay, so from an administration point of view, you're going to be able to see all the different DevBoxes in the environment, and then you'll be able to see what the status is of all those DevBoxes. Okay, we are done. So machine created. It took around half an hour to create, which is not too bad. So let's head over to the portal and then see what this looks like from the admin perspective, but also from the end user as well. Okay, so this is the admin portal. As you can see here, it's now said it's in the running state. So it actually created at 7:40. So let's actually connect to the DevBox now that it's been configured. So I'm going to head over to my Azure portal. I've already got the remote desktop app installed, so I'm not going to select that. I'm just going to select the go right to your machine in the remote desktop. Okay, I'm just going to click the connect button. Okay, it's going to log me straight in. So that's the single sign-on capability that we could see. And you can see here straight away we've got some tools on the desktop. So I've got PowerShell, I've got Unity Hub, Visual Studio, and Visual Studio Code. All right, so let's have a look and see what else is installed on here. Yep. Okay, so you can see we've got all these tools. So we've got GitHub client, and we've got all the Azure CLI stuff. So this is basically what this is made for, right? It's so you don't have to deploy all this software. I've even got like Node++ installed and PowerShell and Putty. So this makes it really easy to manage these machines, because it's always going to have the latest version of all this software on it as well, which is really useful. And as we can see here, let's just go to Task Manager. Look, and we can see here as well what performance we've got. So we've got like 32 gigs of memory. We've got a standard SSD, and then we've got a kind of Xeon CPU as well. So it should be pretty quick, nice fast VM. So yeah, that is Microsoft Azure DevBox, and now your kind of developers are up and running, and enable them to sort of get going in a very short space of time. So if I wanted to just log off, I could log off from within there, just head over to the portal. So just gonna click those down. So what can we do in here? So let's just head over here. So I could do stuff like hibernation mode. I could do stuff like shutdown, restart, troubleshoot, repair. Click on more info. So if I click more info, it tells you a bit more details about the VM specs as well. So we should be able to delete. Yeah, so you can go there for. And so once you've finished with that VM and you want to throw that away, you can just delete that as well. So this is like the self-service capability. Okay, so let's talk about DevBox pricing. How much does this service actually cost? So for this, we're going to head over to the portal. What I'm actually going to do, I'm actually going to compare the cost against Azure Virtual Desktop and also Windows 365 as well. Okay, and just so you get a good comparison about what this cost might look like. So first of all, for the prereqs, you need to be licensed for Windows 11 or Windows 10 Enterprise. Okay, and then also an Active Directory P1 license if you want to do in advanced kind of authentication and Intune management. So we're going to keep this with US dollar costs. Okay, so minimum spec you can have is like 8 CPU and 32 gigs of RAM, and we're talking around maximum price of $138. So this is actually quite cool. It gives you an hourly compute cost. So if you go below what that cost would come to, then you'll only be charged what your hourly compute cost is. So if you only use the VMs for like, I don't know, 10 hours a month, you'll only be charged whatever $1.49 is times 10, right? And then you'll also have the monthly storage cost on top of that as well, right? But as I mentioned, the cool thing is it has a cap, and if you go over that cap, then you just get charged the maximum price of $138, which I think is really good actually, because it means you may want to keep that VM running 24/7, and if you do, you'll only maximally pay like $138. So that's a really good idea from Microsoft. It takes that worry away of costs kind of like spiraling out of control. And as you can see there, obviously the bigger the dev box is, the more expensive it gets. Like the maximum one is going to cost you $630 a month, including like all the storage and stuff. Okay, so really cool. What I'll now do though is compare it against if you had an individual VM, right? So if you had a similar spec VM, as in like 8 CPUs and 32 gigs of RAM, how much is that going to cost you? So I based this on 160 hours, which is obviously the based on a 40-hour week. And interestingly, it comes out around the same cost, right? So we've got that's with the disk as well. So with the disk as well, is going to cost you. Let me just add in that. So on that, it's going to cost you $152 a month. Okay, so that's compared to the $138.20, right? Interesting. But my point is this: if I now increase that to maybe 220 hours a month, right, that cost goes up to over $200. Okay, compared to the cost that we have here. Right. So it actually seems to be a lot more economical to use DevBox than it would be just to spin up some VMs, but obviously based on the hourly usage as well. So let's also have a look and see how that compares to like Windows 365. Right. So again, similar spec VM. We've got 32 gigs of RAM, which is 256 gigs of storage, and that's £122, which is converted to dollar. That works out to like $160 as well. Okay, so again, the DevBox seems to be a bit cheaper than running a similar Windows 365 Cloud PC instance as well. So I was quite surprised when I kind of did the calculations and worked this out. That actually works out quite well. So this is a really good solution for developers because it just gives you a lot more flexibility around provisioning your own desktops, and then obviously is quite economical from a cost perspective as well. I guess the only downside is this is the minimum spec, right? So if we go back to the calculated price here, and if I wanted to give my developers maybe a D4 ADS V5, which has had like 4 CPUs and 16 gigs of RAM, which is probably fine, and I wanted to run that for say 160 hours a week, that will come out at $85, right? Which is 50% of the cost that you would have. And then if you bump that up to say 220 hours a week, that would only still come out at like $110. Okay, so to me, the only downside is you have to have that minimum size VM. But hey, most developers are going to want quite big, beefy VMs anyway. So yeah, so that's what it looks like from a cost perspective. So keep that in mind when you're kind of pricing up the solution as well, especially around the minimum VM size, because if your developers can get away with like 4 CPUs and 16 gigs of RAM, then it may not be the best solution for you. But if you're running like 8 CPUs and 32 gigs of RAM, I think it certainly seems to be a lot more cost effective to run the pay-as-you-go pricing. All right, so yeah, that's it. That's Microsoft DevBox. Very quick and easy to get up and running. From a cost perspective, it makes sense, especially that Microsoft have put that sort of cap on the maximum monthly price, which I think is a really, really good idea. And this will just take all the strain from you as an IT admin away from managing those desktops. The fact that it's secure as well, which is really good. We can put it on the Microsoft Managed Hosted Network, so they can be like in their own little segregation, so you don't have to worry about security, because that's why a lot of people don't like having people local admin rights, because once they get those like local admin rights, they can potentially infiltrate the rest of your network. But as this is totally segregated, that solved that problem as well. So me personally, I'm really impressed with DevBox. This is the first time that I've really played with it in a bit more detail, and I can definitely see see the use case of it as well. So hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe because it really helps me. I'll see you with another video next week.